A drive across eastern Pennsylvania today feels like crossing a long, quiet story written in stone and shadow. Ridges rise in steady lines across the horizon. Valleys open into old towns and patched fields. Cuts along the highways show layers of rock stacked like pages in a massive book. In places near the coal regions, dark rock appears in spoil piles and road gravel. The ground itself seems to remember a different world. These weathered hills stand patient. They guard an ancient secret that is both simple and extraordinary. Long before factories or rail lines existed, this region held vast swamp forests. These forests captured sunlight as plant flesh. They then sealed it away as dense black carbon. Geography is permanent. These mountains stood while oceans came and went. They endured while coastlines shifted back and forth. Industries shift and towns thin out, but the geological foundation remains. In Pennsylvania, that foundation created one of the strangest gifts of deep time. Anthracite is a coal so hard and rich that it burns hotter and cleaner than almost any other fuel. Residents see the word anthracite on signs and in history books, but the true story starts far earlier. It starts in a place that looked nothing like a cold ridge in winter. These ancient mountains hold geological secrets nowhere else preserved. They are weathered giants standing as quiet guardians of 480 million years of Earth's memory. The clock has to turn back to the Carboniferous period. This was roughly 300 million years ago. It was a time before dinosaurs walked or birds flew. Flowering plants did not even exist yet. At that time, this region sat much closer to the equator. The climate was hot and heavy with moisture. Massive swamp forests covered the land. These were not the woods seen today. Giant ferns grew as tall as houses. Club mosses reached toward the sky like skyscrapers. These plants lived fast and died in shallow, stagnant water. The water lacked oxygen. Because there was no oxygen, the dead plants did not rot away. They piled up in thick layers of black muck called peat. Over time, the land began to sink. Shallow seas moved in and covered the peat with layers of sand and mud. The weight of this sediment was immense. It squeezed the water out of the peat. It packed the carbon tighter and tighter. This happened over and over for millions of years. This process occurred across many parts of the world, but something special happened here. This specific region holds formations nowhere else maintained in such a pure state. The Earth guarded these precious seams of coal in its depths. These mountains are 480 million years old. That makes them 6 times older than the Rockies. While younger western ranges boast sharp peaks, these enduring giants display the quiet power of true survival. The landscape holds itself with the dignity earned through deep time. Each valley was carved by forces working across ages beyond human scale. The formation of the land itself was a violent and grand event. About 300 million years ago, the giant land masses of the world were moving. Africa and North America were on a collision course. When they finally hit, the impact was slow but unstoppable. The ground buckled like a rug being pushed across a hardwood floor. This collision pushed the land high into the air. Huge folds of rock rose up. These were once the tallest mountains on the planet. Geologists believe they once stood as high as the Himalayas do now, but the pressure here was different than in other places. In eastern Pennsylvania, the squeeze was so intense that it baked the coal. It drove out almost all the impurities. It left behind nearly pure carbon. This created anthracite. This type of hard coal is found in large amounts in only a few places on Earth. Ancient forces decided where these resources exist. The geology was set long before any person arrived to name the valleys. Observing the land today reveals how the rock layers were bent. Highway cuts show rock beds standing almost straight up and down. Some layers curve in giant arches. Others dip down into deep bowls. This folding is why the coal is so hard to reach. It does not sit in flat, easy sheets. It sits in deep, tilted veins that dive thousands of feet underground. Miners had to follow these narrow paths into the dark. The terrain determined where the work happened. It determined which towns grew and which ones stayed small. Geography is permanent. These steadfast peaks have stood as silent witnesses to vanished oceans. They remained while empires rose and fell. The ridges roll across the horizon like frozen waves. They are beautiful and striking. They are a testament to the power of the earth. When a person looks at a ridge today, they are seeing the roots of an ancient mountain range. The tops were worn away by wind and rain over vast stretches of time. What remains is the hard core. This stone is so tough that it refused to crumble. It outlasted the storms of nearly 500 million years. Rivers in this region tell another part of the story. If a person watches the water, they will see something strange. Many rivers do not flow around the mountains. Instead, they cut straight through them. They flow through deep gaps in the solid rock. For a long time, people wondered how this happened. It seemed like the rivers were stronger than the mountains. In 1989, a team of scientists from Virginia Tech studied these patterns. They looked at the New River Gorge. This site is a 1,500-foot cut through the bedrock. That is taller than most city skyscrapers. The team was led by Dr. Mills. They collected rock samples from the top and the bottom of the gorge. They worked through 4 hot summers. They used radioactive dating back at the lab to find the age of the stones. The results were published in major journals. The labs confirmed that the river had been there for a very long time. The rocks at the top were much younger than the ones at the bottom. This proved a fascinating theory. The rivers were already flowing when the land started to rise. As the mountains pushed up, the rivers kept cutting down. They acted like saws moving through a log that is being pushed upward. The paths of the rivers were set by geology before the mountains were even finished growing. These gaps in the mountains became the most important spots in the region. They were the only easy ways to get from one side of a ridge to the other. Long before humans arrived, animals used these gaps. Later, native people followed those same paths. When settlers came, they built their roads through the same low spots. Then the canals and railroads followed. The towns grew up at the mouths of these gaps. The location of every major road and rail line was decided by the water and the rock. Settlement patterns followed features set 300 million years ago. This is why some towns survived while others did not. If a town sat near a gap or a river crossing, it became a hub. If it was blocked by a solid ridge, it stayed isolated. The land controlled where the people went. This creates a sense of deep continuity. The landscape holds its structure even as human systems change. The ridges stand as monuments to geological time. They are ancient, patient, and immovable. The weight of the land is immense. Under the soil and the trees, the bedrock forms a solid archive of the past. Geologists at Penn State University have spent decades mapping these layers. They have drilled deep holes into the earth to pull out core samples. These samples are like long straws of rock. They show exactly what happened and when. The labs found that the hard rock of the ridges is different from the soft rock of the valleys. The valleys are made of limestone and shale. These rocks wear away easily. The ridges are made of sandstone and conglomerate. These are much harder. Rain and ice eat the valleys away while the ridges stay high. This is why the landscape looks like a giant washboard. It is a pattern of hard and soft. Only here does the bedrock contain such a perfect record of this ancient struggle. These mountains preserve evidence, vanished oceans left behind. The stone rises in layered bands. Each band is a chapter in a story that is millions of years old. The scale of this history makes human concerns feel small. These weathered peaks stand as enduring monuments across the landscape. Rivers carved trade routes before humans ever thought of them. The Susquehanna River is a perfect example. It is one of the oldest rivers in the entire world. It flows across the state and cuts through ridge after ridge. It ignores the mountains and follows its own ancient path. This river has seen the mountains rise up around it. It has seen the climate change from a tropical swamp to a frozen tundra. It has seen the arrival and departure of countless species. This river is a powerful force. It has moved billions of tons of stone over its life. Every raindrop that falls between the mountains eventually finds its way to these ancient channels. The water follows the rules of the land. The land follows the rules of the rock. The ridges march across the land in parallel waves. They are striking and dramatic. They are a constant presence in the lives of everyone who lives there. The mountains don't just sit there. They act as barriers. They trap the morning mist in the valleys. They direct the wind. They decide where the snow piles up in the winter. The anthracite region is unique because of its chemistry. Most coal has a lot of sulfur and moisture in it. When it burns, it makes a lot of smoke and ash. But anthracite is different. It is nearly 90% carbon. Because it was squeezed so hard by the rising mountains, it became a concentrated form of energy. It is shiny and black like glass. It is hard enough that it does not get your hands dirty when you touch it. Geologists call it metacoal because it has been changed by heat and pressure. This change happened only in this specific corner of the world. Nowhere else on the continent is there a deposit of this size and quality. The Earth guarded this treasure for millions of years. It waited for a time when people would need it. This resource was not placed there by chance. It was the result of a perfect storm of geological events. First, the giant swamps. Then, the sinking land. Finally, the massive collision of continents. If any of those things had not happened, the region would be completely different. The character of the land was forged in these ancient fires and pressures. The scale of the mountains is hard to grasp until you see them from above. From an airplane, the ridges look like the backbone of a giant beast. They stretch for hundreds of miles. They are remarkably consistent. They maintain the same height and the same direction for as far as the eye can see. This visual grandeur is breathtaking. It is a landscape of massive proportions. The peaks rise weathered but unbroken against the sky. They have a dignity that comes from age. They do not need to be sharp or jagged to be impressive. Their power comes from their permanence. Geography is permanent. These mountains have outlasted everything that has ever lived on them. They will outlast everything that lives on them now. This is a comforting thought. In a world where everything seems to change so fast, the mountains are a steady anchor. They provide a sense of place that is rooted in the very core of the earth. The hills are silent witnesses to the passage of time. They remember the world as it was and as it is. The way the coal was mined also depended on the geology. Because the veins were tilted, miners could not just dig a flat tunnel. They had to dig slopes that went down at steep angles. They had to build giant structures called breakers to crush the hard rock and separate it from the coal. These breakers once stood like massive wooden cathedrals in the valleys. They followed the shape of the land. The towns were built right next to the mines. The streets followed the curves of the ridges. The houses were tucked into the narrow spaces between the hills and the rivers. Nothing was random. Every house and every street was placed where the geology allowed it to be. The terrain dictated the layout of human life. This is the definition of geological determinism. The land was the boss. It told the people where to work and where to sleep. It provided the wealth, but it also set the limits. The mountains held the people in their grip. They offered protection, but also required hard work. The story of this region is one of persistence. The anthracite did not go away when the markets changed. It is still there, deep in the ground. The seams of coal are still waiting in the dark. The technology of the modern world has changed how we use energy, but the resource remains. Modern stoves and power plants still use this ancient carbon. It still provides steady warmth in the winter. It still delivers the energy that was captured by tropical ferns 300 million years ago. This continuity is remarkable. It links the present day to a time so distant it is hard to imagine. The landscape preserves this link. It holds the energy of the past and offers it to the present. The ridges still rise along the same folds. The rivers still run through the same gaps. The ground stays firm even as human systems adapt around it. This is not about the past. It is about the structure of the world right now. The mountains are still working today, just very slowly. They are still being worn down by the rain. The rivers are still cutting deeper into the stone. The significance of this geography is proven by the science. Researchers have used lasers and satellites to measure the land. They found that the mountains are still moving very slightly. The weight of the rock is so great that it actually bends the crust of the earth. These powerful forces are still active. They are the same forces that created the land millions of years ago. Understanding these patterns helps explain why the region looks the way it does. It explains why the roads are curvy and why the towns are in the valleys. It explains why the coal is so pure and where it can be found. This knowledge is not just for books. It is written in the ridges and the rocks. It is visible in every highway cut and every river bank. The landscape holds its secrets in plain sight for anyone who knows how to look. These ancient peaks are a gift from deep time. They are a unique and powerful part of the world. These ancient mountains stand as weathered monuments across the landscape. Their rounded peaks hold 480 million years of geological memory. The ridges preserve evidence nowhere else maintains. They show layers of stone recording vanished oceans and colliding continents. While younger western ranges boast sharp summits, these enduring giants display the quiet power of true survival. The landscape holds itself with the dignity earned through deep time. Each valley was carved by forces working across ages beyond human understanding. Geography is permanent on human timescales. These geological forces were active hundreds of millions of years ago and remain active today. Industries change and populations shift, but the underlying landscape stays constant. Geographic patterns were determined by ancient forces beyond human control. Core samples and dating prove this formation occurred through continental collision, creating a boundary that still controls how water flows today. Same processes that shaped the land millions of years ago are still working today, just too slowly to notice in a human lifetime. The features we observe are not random. They are the direct result of ancient processes that science has now fully documented.